Hello, everyone, and welcome to Module 1, Lesson 10 and 11. We are condensing two lessons into one again, just to save time and make sure that we finish Module 1 before the 9 weeks are up. And if you came to the morning class today on October 5th, I'm sorry, I did have some Google Meet problems with presenting and audio. Hopefully, I'll get that fixed before Tuesday, October 6th, but if not, then just keep watching the pre-recorded lesson videos and I'll get it fixed eventually. So, yeah, let's just get into it, okay? So, announcements. Y'all should know by now that the class schedule, the structure has changed. We are meeting Monday through Friday, every single day of the school week. So, just remember to show up every single day for class. If not, just watch the pre-recorded lesson videos, right, to catch up. And the assessment, I don't know if y'all got my Schoology message or not, but I said for your zeros for missing assignments, I will be putting 50s in for daily work. I can't do that for, the major grade assessments. But for your daily work, if you have zeros, I will be putting 50s in. It's still failing, but it's a lot easier to come back from a 50 than it is a 0, right? And if you complete all the major assessments, there's 2 right now. There will be 1 more before the 9 weeks is up. If you complete all 3 and you take the STAR testing, a lot of you still have not done the STAR testing yet. If you do all of those things, I will change those 50s that you have for daily work into 70s. So you will be passing. I'm trying to give you every opportunity that you can to pass this class because I don't want any one of y'all to fail because I know how hard online is. But if you don't do the things I'm asking you to do, but I have no choice but to give you a failing grade in this class, right? So you have 2 more weeks. You have this week and next week to turn in stuff. The last day to turn in grades is October 15th before, I think, 4 p.m. So that's when I have to put grades in. You have until then to get grades finalized. If you have any questions or you need any help in getting into things, let me know and I'll help you out. And for the STAR testing, remember you have to show up for office hours or you can come up to the school and test in person. Just let me know if you need to test in person, okay? But let's start jumping into lesson 10 and 11, okay? So the learning goals, they're all right there. It's very wordy right now, so I'm not going to read them out. Just read them whenever you can. But this is the thing. All 3 of these we will be learning throughout lesson 10 and 11. So in this video. And if you read them, it's basically just we're going over poetic structure again, right? The form and how the poems are written, and we're going to be analyzing that to find deeper meaning. So the intro for this lesson, I know if all of you are basically watching the pre-recorded lesson video because I couldn't do virtual classes because of technical issues. So I want you all to click on this Padlet link. Now I want you to write a metaphor, a simile based on the fact that is given. The fact is the weather is cold and rainy. Right? I want you to write a metaphor, a simile that shows that the weather is cold and rainy. Some examples of a metaphor is raining cats and dogs, or an example of a simile for that fact is it sounds like a waterfall is outside because it's raining so much. Right? Simile is comparing 2 things while using the word like or as. The amount of rain outside is being compared to a waterfall, right? Because it's raining so much, it's very noisy. And cats and dogs is being compared to rain. Is how big the droplets are, right? So I want you to click this Padlet link, and it's going to take you here. And y'all know how to do Padlet by now, right? Just click plus. Oh, it looks like some of y'all have already done it, which is great. But remember, you're going to click plus and just do it. Remember, name up top and writing underneath. Remember, I checked these, so just remember to do that so I can see your progress with it, right? Remember, metaphors and similes we've been going over constantly, so hopefully we're going to get you enough practice with it, okay? So moving on. That's the intro. So take a couple seconds to do that, and then you can come back to the video, okay? Okay, so welcome back. So we're moving on to the important questions, right? So the important questions, essential question is still the same. What is the power of storytelling? The focusing question is how does form shape a story's meaning? Remember, the focusing question changed in lesson 8, so we're going to be working a new focusing question now. The other one was how does what was it? The sense of self, right? Josh's sense of self. Now is how does form shape a story's meaning? So we're only going to be looking at poem structure and how the poem's written and how analyzing that can get us to the meaning of the story and then the theme and what it's about, right? And then the content framing question is what does a deeper exploration of poetic structure reveal in the crossover? We're going to be analyzing specific poems to find the meaning by just looking at the structure and the word choices and things like that, right? So we're going to continue to examine the impact of structure on a poem's meaning in literary analysis and eventually in your own narrative writing, right? And then we're going to focus on the ways that poetic structure conveys a pivotal moment in the crossover. So we're going to be looking at specific poems, and they are the climax, one of the most important parts of the poem, okay? So the first poem that we're going to be looking at is At Noon in the Gym with Dad. And then we're going to be able to answer how does the structure of the poem contribute to what's happening in the story, okay? So let me pull it up for y'all. So it's a little bit longer one, so I had to split it up and make it into a PDF. But this is At Noon in the Gym with Dad. So I'm going to read this for y'all, and then we're going to answer questions about the structure. As you can clearly see before we even get into it, you can see that the structure is a little bit more different than the poems that we've been looking at, okay? So At Noon in the Gym with Dad. People watching, players boasting, me scoring, Dad snoring, crowd growing, we bawling, me pumping, Dad jumping, me faking, nasty shot, nasty moves, 5-0, my lead, next play, dribble bounce, dribble steal, Dad laughs, palms ball. You okay? Dad winks, watch this, he dips, sweat drips, left jaw, right yaw, I fall, crowd wild, Dad drives, steps strides, runs fast, hoop bound, stutter steps, lets loose, screams loud, stands still, breath short, more sweat, grabs chest, eyes roll, ball drops, Dad drops, I scream, help, please, sweet tea, dial cell. Jordan runs, brings water, splashes face, Dad nothing, out cold. I remember, gym class, tilt pinch, blow pump, still nothing, blow pump, sirens blast, pulse gone, eyes shut. So that was At Noon in the Gym with Dad. If you've been keeping up with the reading or if you haven't, at this point in the poem, they have been talking about Chuck Bell, the dad, and his health and how they're worried about his health because he has a pre-existing medical condition called hypertension. And Chuck's dad, Jordan, or JB and Josh's grandfather, died because of hypertension and poor heart health. And people are worried that Chuck Bell has it. And as you can see in this one, Chuck Bell suffers a heart attack, right? So we're going to be looking at the structure of it and how it's read and how the structure and the pacing and how it's read really help contribute to the story, right? And y'all should be used to annotating by now. If not, remember to watch the pre-recorded lesson video, not the pre-recorded lesson videos and the read aloud videos, right? Because the read aloud videos is me going through the book and annotating and reading it for y'all and showing you how the pacing should be. I am falling behind with those, but I will be uploading the rest of the book, okay? So just look out for that. So this poem, the structure of it, as you can see, each line of the poem is 2 words, right? And by doing that, it really slows down the reading. So this conveys how Josh might have experienced this event, his dad having a heart attack while they were playing, emotionally, right? He experienced it, in my opinion, in slow motion, right? So the structure of this, you're supposed to read it a little bit slower. And I think the repetition and the rhythm of the 2-word lines and the pacing of it, I think it sounds like a heartbeat, right? People watching, players boasting, doodle, doodle, right? And I think that helps, the rhythm of it helps focus on Chuck Bell having a heart attack, right? It's about his heart. They're always worried about his heart health. And them talking about hypertension and the grandfather was all foreshadowing, right? And in most of the lines, one of the words is always a verb, right? Watching, boasting, scoring, snoring, growing. Those are verbs. And the highlighting the actions, the verbs, in a play-by-play fashion as the scene unfolds, I think it captures the action in the moment. It makes you feels like you're there and you're picturing what's happening. And the pacing and the rhythm of the 2-line structure begins with, it, it begins to sound like Josh is running out of breath, right? It's supposed to slow down, and you're supposed to really feel the rhythm of it. And the short lines, I think, build tension, right? And it feels like Josh is in it and he's panicking. It's supposed to build the tension for you, because longer lines would suggest that Josh had time to think or act, right? But these short lines and how many verbs and actions are going on in such a quick time, it makes it seem like Josh had no time to think, right? And at the end, it talks about gym class and him doing CPR. That also back then is an example of foreshadowing of what was to come, right? So as you can see, just the structure of this alone and how it's 2-word sentences and 2-word lines, it shows you how it's supposed to be read, right? Remember, we always annotate for form and structure because we need to see how the poem's supposed to be read, because the author wrote it this way. The author wanted it to be slowed down and to help show you what Josh is thinking and doing in the moment of it, and how he's panicking and everything's going in slow motion, and how he doesn't have time to think and how he needs to act now, right? So hopefully you are slowly understanding why it is like that. And as you can see, the question is, how does the structure of the 2-word lines contribute to what happens in the poem? It helps the pacing, helps the rhythm, right? And the rhythm helps show you what Josh is feeling in the moment. So hopefully you are slowly understanding that. If you're not, remember, ask questions, sign up for tutorials. Remember, it is my job to help you and help you understand what you're not understanding. Okay? So let's move on to the next poem, okay? Okay, so the next poem is The Last Shot. So let me pull this up. So remember, we're going to be analyzing or annotating for form and language, right? So The Last Shot. As you can see, the format, the spacing, the pacing, capitalization, everything like that is sort of similar to some other poems that we've done, like Dribbling, right? So I'm going to read this out loud for y'all, and then we're going to get into the structure of it. Also remember, always look for capitalization and spacing, because remember, you have to know how it's supposed to be read. I was reading it correctly with this right expression and pace. Helps you understand the poem a little bit better, right? So The Last Shot. 5. A bolt of lightning on my kicks. The court is sizzling. My sweat is drizzling. Stop all that quivering, because tonight I'm delivering. I'm driving down the lane, sliding. 4. Dribbling to the middle, gliding like a black eagle. The crowd is rumbling, rustling, roaring. Take it to the hoop. Take it to the hoop. 3, 2. Watch out, because I'm about to get dirty with it. About to pour filthy sauce all over you. Oh, did you see McNasty cross over you? Now I'm taking you, ankle breaking you. You're on your knees, screaming, please, baby, please. 1. It's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's up, up, up. My shot is flowing, flying, fluttering. Oh, the chains are jingling, ringling, and swingling. Swish. Game over. So that's The Last Shot. Remember the format of it and the pacing, the spacing. Remember, they all contribute to the meaning of the poem and helps move the story along, right? So as you saw, the numbers, it's basically counting down. It's like a shot clock. right? It is counting down its timer, and that's basically what it's supposed to be. The countdown of the numbers, right, create tension in the poem because it shows the final seconds of the basketball game, right? So one, after you say one, you're supposed to take a pause, right? You see it from these ellipses, these series of periods right here. So let's take a pause after you say it, and that pause helps bring up and build up tension. And the words that describe the shot, like as you can see right here, if you look at word choices, flowing, um, flying, fluttering, right? And then jingling. Those are all the capitalization is a bit weird, right? The spacing and the spelling, right? All three of those things, capitalization, spacing, and spelling for each of those words help mimic the action of the shot, right? Fluttering, it's every other letter is capitalized, right? It's helping. The author did that because they want you to see the ball flying through the air, right? And those words and how they look right there help you imagine what the ball is doing in the air whenever Josh shot it, right? And then you see a lot of metaphors in there. It's a bird, it's a plane, and metaphors like that can help create excitement and tension in the text, right? Also, gliding like a black eagle, that was a simile. It helps you see what Josh is doing, right? Hopefully, that is slowly making sense. And then what else? The poem also describes Josh's emotions and reactions um, in the moment, right? Whenever he's playing and it's the last couple seconds with words like, oh, right? Where is it? Oh, right there, right? About to pour filthy sauce all over you. Oh, did you see McNasty cross over you? Right? He's excited. He is adrenaline is pumping, right? He is in the middle of the play, and it helps you see how excited he is. And then the references to the shot in the poem, build tension of being involved in the basketball game, right? While he this pacing, the spacing, the capitalization, all of that is supposed to help build up tension and bring excitement to the reader because that is the emotion that Josh is feeling as well. So it helps you see exactly what Josh is doing and what he's feeling during the basketball game. So hopefully you're seeing that whenever we're looking at this poem and annotating for things like that, right? So pull this up, and then let us move on to the second to last one, which is fast break. Fast break is we're going to be looking at the impact of the structure, right? Again, on the poem's meaning. That was the content framing question. We're going to be analyzing for form, capitalization, spacing, things like that. So here is fast break. And then again, I'm going to read this out loud for y'all, and then we're going to be looking at the content of it, or the form of it, right? So, fast break. And this is found on page 149 to 150 of the book. And again, it's sort of a longer one, so I made it into a PDF with two. It's a fast break. He's a backcourt baller on the break, a running, gunning, shooting star flying fast. JB's fixing for the glass. Bounce, bounce. Ball beside him. Now he's getting flyer and flyer, climbing sky. He nods his head and pumps a fake. Explodes the lane. Crisp ball, cross ball. Kristen takes the kaboom. Above the rim, a thunderous almost dunk. That elbow just sent JB kerplunk to the floor. Foul. So as you see, the structure, the capitalization, the how the words are written, right? Spacing is really similar to the last poem that we read. Remember the last shots? You can see there's certain emphasis on certain words, and remember that contribute to how you're supposed to read it, right? So the word size shows the intensity of the actions in a basketball game, right? Words like gunning and explodes are much bigger because they are more dynamic, right? The author wants you to emphasize that and help you see the action and how quick everything is going in this scene. The words bounce, right, have different letter sizes. Like the author capitalized certain words and made certain letters bigger because, especially in the words bounce, because it wants you to see that that the words are copying the action of the ball bouncing, right? It's getting smaller and bigger and smaller and bigger. Does that make sense? And then the positions of the letters also show the action of the game. kaboom right here moves down the page, right? And when JB is moving down, and that's basically showing how JB is moving down the court, right? And then Kerplunk also moves down. You see half of it right there in the end. Also moves down. That's also showing how JB is falling to the ground after being fouled. Okay, so hopefully you see that and how the word spacing, how they're written on the page really shows you the action, if that makes sense, right? And how you should slowly be understanding how to be annotating it, right? And how seeing it. Because just looking at Fast Break, you can see that it's a free verse poem. There's not a complete structured thing that the author has to follow. It's free verse, so you can do whatever you want, and that presents a feeling of the dynamic action. In the moment of playing a basketball game, right? And you can easily see that through the visual size of the words. Again, words like bounce and explodes, sound like the actions they describe. Right. This is basically just showing the intensity of the basketball game. And with that, you can easily tell that there's a lot of actions happening without even having to read it, because you can see the words and how they are bolded and enlarged, right? Hopefully that is making sense. If it is not making sense, then please let me know, because there have been a lot of poems that structure like this throughout the book, and every single time you come across one, you should be understanding how to read it and analyze it for meaning, right? So we are going to move on, because we are going to look at a poem that we looked at in the previous lesson, and we're going to be seeing how this structure sort of helps our analysis of the other poems that we've done, if that makes sense. So the poem we're going to be looking at is article number 1 in the Daily News, December 14th. And remember, we looked at this in the last lesson, introduced that poem to you earlier, because that is a new poetic type. It is called a found materials poem, if you remember. And the characteristics of a found materials poem is it reframes writing from a found source as a poem, right? It takes basically from a newspaper or an article, anything that isn't a poem to begin with, and it turns it into a poem, right? And the title indicates usually the source material that you took the words from. In this case, they take it from an article found in the daily newspaper, right? And again, like I said before, typically uses a source that is not originally a poem or poetry, and the selected choice of language from the source material. They take certain words and they try to turn it into a poem by you putting in some of your own, and the words that you usually put in to combine with the words that you found are usually some very descriptive and explanatory words, like descriptive and sensory language words, right? And you basically do that because it's to help present information, understanding from the source material in a different way. So this is article number 1 in the Daily News. I've already read this before, so I'm not going to read it again. But as you can see, whenever you do read it, it isn't like any other poem found in the book. It's not told in the viewpoint of Josh. It is told in the viewpoint of the news article, and the fast break poem that we just read. The events of that is basically being summarized in article number 1, right? The events of this, the events of Fast Break is being retold again, but in the form of a newspaper article. And this poem is super, super interesting because, again, it describes the events of the game that happened in the Fast Break poem. And the poem summarizes the state of Josh and JB's basketball team. Their basketball team is undefeated, and they're going to be playing for the county trophy. And the poem also reveals that the paper has chosen Josh as the most valuable player, right? So again, it is taking words, lines, sentences from the source material, the newspaper, and turning it into a poem form, right? And the newspaper, it's written from an objective point of view. Mostly every other poem is told from Josh's point of view, right? But this poem and any other found materials poem shows in objective view of the experience, right? For this one, it shows an objective view of Josh's experience, and it reveals that many other people consider him to be a really good basketball player, right? Because up to this point, it's just been Josh telling us how good he is at basketball, right? And we don't know if that's honestly technically true because Josh is the one telling us that. But for this one, we can clearly see that Josh was voted the most valuable player, so we can easily tell that objectively, without any bias, he is actually a very good basketball player, right? And the newspaper article is public information, that's available to everyone. This is not a poem about Josh's private feelings or emotions about what's happening to him, right? Because he's going through a lot of difficult times up in this poem, but a lot of the other poems told in Josh's point of view talk about him and what he's feeling, right? But this one, again, since it's in the viewpoint of a newspaper, it's all objective, right? It does not describe his internal point of view, but rather gives an outside view looking into what Josh is going through and the events of the team. That makes sense. So again, remember, these are the characteristics found in a found materials poem. Remember, and it's really important to understand all the different poetic types because at the end of this module, you will be writing 3 poems of 3 different poetic types, and you could be writing one about a found materials poem. So again, remember how you write a found materials poem is you get a different source, usually a newspaper article, or it could be a book, a magazine, anything like that, and you look at it, take some certain words and lines, and you take those lines and make it into your own poem. So example of some is, this is an example of a blackout poem. So again, remember, they are taking, this is a book, right? And they blacked out certain words, but they kept and boxed in certain words that they want to use for their found materials poem, right? So this is basically a different poem that they made. They didn't really add their own words to it. Usually in our class, whenever we write a found materials poem, we will be including our own words into the poem in addition to the words that you find in a different source material, right? Another one is this. You can cut out words or lines from a magazine and do it like that. Or another way is this, right? So as you can see, this is from a book, and they circled or squared in certain words that they want to make into a different poem, right? So the words that they combined from the source material to create a new poem is the feeling of gravity keeps us down. That is the thing that they wanted to get across. And they did that by taking certain words from a different source material and creating it into a found materials poem. So hopefully that is making sense. But remember, usually whenever we do things like that, we will be including a lot of our own words in it. And usually they would be descriptive and sensory language words, right? To help jazz up your writing, always include descriptive and sensory language words. So hopefully that's making sense and you understand what a found materials poem is. If not, again, please let me know if you have any questions about that, or schedule a tutorial session if you need further explanation. So the wrap up, what does a deeper exploration of poetic structure reveal in the crossover? Remember, we looked at specific poems and examined the structure of it, how the word's written on the page, and how it's supposed to be read, and the appropriate pace of it. And by doing that, it helps us further the plot and know exactly what's happening in the book, and specifically in the poems that we looked at, right? And by looking at the structure of it and everything like that, it helps us see Josh's emotions a little bit better and exactly what's happening in the situation that he's in, right? Again, it advances the plot as it emphasizes Josh's role in the team's success and the impact that Josh's suspension has on others. That was basically what the found materials poem that we read did, right? So for your assigned reading, I just want y'all to finish the book at this point. Remember, the online copy is found in the important links folder. If you can't access that, please let me know. Remember, and you can also come up to the school to pick up the book still if you have time. If you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, let me know through the question board, Schoology message, or email. But other than that, hopefully I get the Google Meet fixed. and y'all don't have to just keep watching the pre-recorded lesson videos. But that is it for lesson 10 and 11. I'll see you here for lesson 12 and 13. Bye.